Today is Thursday, January 8th, 2026, and at the Unity Palace in Etudi, Yaoundé, Cameroon. Today is not just New Year wishes. Today is a political screening exercise inside the most controlled building in Cameroon. Because when a head of state announces a new government, every handshake becomes a signal. Every smile becomes a message, and every invite becomes a ranking. Hi there, hello, salut, bonjour. I hope you're doing very well wherever you're watching at the moment. And above all, 2026 has been good to you so far, and we pray it continues the same. From all the corners of Cameroon, across the diaspora, especially in the USA, where I have known that there's so many people that watch this platform, watch this channel, and thank you all from across the globe for your contributions, your connections, your messages, your comments, your likes, your shares. Your support is enormous. And above all, you keep growing the platform, and I know we can hit that 10,000 mark in just a few weeks. Why not a few days? Because you'll be surprised that at least 80% of those who watch on this platform are not yet subscribers. Please do subscribe. Thank you. But anyways, let's get right to it. And it's important that we continue the conversation. So today, I'll break it down in 3 parts. The first, we'll talk about the Unity Palace New Year wishes and what it really is. It's a cabinet reshuffle season. We need to break it down for a second. What this New Year wishes at the Unity Palace in Yaoundé today in this cabinet reshuffle or formation of a new government season, and what it means and what is going to happen. 2 quick clarifications from the last episode. I did promise that I would respond. And again, it's important that I take the moment to talk about churches and the diaspora. I picked out those 2 comments because, again, it came with a lot of background, and I feel that maybe some things got misconstrued. It's important that I touch on those. And then we close with a significant diplomatic moment. Ambassador Lamora's surprise visit to Metro Alisinkom, spokesperson of Issa Chiruma Bakari. Let's go. First off, we talk about the Unity Palace wishes, farewell audition optics, and I'll analyze it from different angles. The first angle is the fact that the farewell handshake is a function in itself. So here's the first possibility as we read things. This is the cleanest, most polite way to say thank you and possibly goodbye, as President Biya would be sitting standing, because that's the protocol, standing for hours unending and shaking hands. And I'm sure you've seen that before, but this year is different. And we do know that there's a cloud of Issa Chiruma Bakari's return hovering around Yaoundé. And everything that is done in Yaoundé and everything that will happen in a couple of hours would be very tailored and specific to the moment. So stay tuned. Now, in Cameroon, people don't just always get sacked, as you know, with clear explanations. People don't get sacked. Rarely do people resign. So sometimes they get silenced with protocol. So today can be a soft exit for some long-serving ministers. Watch out. Handshake, photo, merci, then the door closes. And I want you to watch one thing, not what they say. Watch who gets time, who gets eye contact, who gets the second handshake, who gets the warm smile. In Yaoundé politics, warmth is a currency. Now let's talk about the second angle, the audition room function. Second possibility is the fact that this is a controlled audition for the next cabinet specifically. Because you cannot say you'll be forming a new government in the coming days. You schedule your New Year wishes. And you do know that Cameroon, the Indomitable Lions, are playing on Friday. And people usually expect the formation of a new government to drop either going towards the weekend, usually on a Friday, 5 p.m., so that people have the whole weekend to celebrate before Monday things change. And usually when President Biya does his New Year wishes, it opens the door for every other minister to start doing their own wishes. He may actually cut them short by announcing the formation of a new government before they get to schedule theirs, or he may allow them to do it and then come at the end to crown things. But he cannot go past the 15th of January without forming this government. A few days from a statesman in quote, I always put this particular phrase in quote because it's very critical for Cameroonians to know that despite the longevity of office, yes, Cameroonians may remember this person as a president, but his tenure may have been tainted. And that is why I say statesman in quotes. And therefore, you would understand why it's very important that this particular moment is seen as an opportunity to audition those that are going to run, or those that have already been shortlisted and are already inside the bubble. Because the guest list is not random. You have the diplomatic corps, national dignitaries, corps constitué, traditional authorities, almost everybody who matters in that ecosystem to the regime has been invited to be there. So if there is a new government coming, this space becomes a human catalog. Who looks confident? Who looks desperate? Who is networking too hard? Who is avoiding people? Who is being watched? And yes, Cameroon has had ministers who have operated like ghosts, appointed, powerful, but not necessarily known personally by the head of state in any meaningful way. But this particular cabinet moment is different because the regime is in a sensitive season. So you don't gamble strategic portfolios with pure newbies. You cannot read. You have to have your main people and you test your loyalty game. You don't do that in one day, but there are a lot of signals that will come from a meeting like this. As we know, we haven't had the head of state hasn't met his ministers, for years, had a working session with his ministers. It's unthinkable what they call a conseil des ministres. It's not happened. Everything has been shoveled down the portfolio of the PM, and we know how the PM is being considered, not sixth in line and is not respected by those in office. They're members of government who act above the PM. So when the head of state doesn't sit and work with his ministers, it also tells you why so many things happen in the country. People have died and not been replaced and stuff. So that's to tell you that this is a key one. So let's call the ministers by their real names. Real names in the sense that defense is not a ministry. It's security architecture. Finance is not a ministry. It's the engine room. Justice is not a ministry. It's the legal shield and legal sword. Territorial administration is not a ministry. It's the internal control tower. Look at it from that lens. Defense, a security architecture. Finance, the engine room. Justice, the legal shield and legal sword. And territorial administration, giving you that internal control tower. So if he's forming a new government, he must balance loyalty, competence, regional arithmetic, and internal security trust. That is exactly how it's going to play out. And that's why today matters. On the third angle, we talk about surveillance state. And that's a big function for this particular New Year wishes. Because it's a third possibility that today is also a data collection moment. The Unity Palace is not just cameras for television. It is cameras for control. So even if the head of state doesn't meet everybody deep today, or it has a deep conversation with everyone, the system can. It can observe, it can record, it can profile, and report back. So in other words, you don't only attend the palace attends you. And the fourth angle is the vitality public relations function. What do I mean by that? You've seen it before where people go and shake the hand of the head of state and come back and tell you all kinds of fairy tales. Yes, let's talk about that part. Cameroonians know too well the performance after the handshake. Some people will shake hands with the head of state and go outside to jubilate. like they received a private revelation. And then you will hear the familiar lines. Il est vibrant. He was strong. His handshake was firm. He looked energetic. He's in control. This is not just storytelling. This is political marketing. Think about it. They try to sell vigor as governance. But let's be clear, a firm handshake is not public policy. A country is not governed by handshake strength. A country is governed by institutions, accountability, and results. So here's the line for today. This ceremony is not about New Year wishes. It's about loyalty management, cabinet engineering, and regime image control. That's what I'm telling you. And if you want to understand Cameroon, always remember, when the system looks calm, it may be because it is curating calm. Yes. So that aside, let's talk about the two clarifications from the last episode. Churches, faith versus exploitation, spirituality versus industry. Let me address the church conversation carefully. When I say the proliferation of churches is a problem, I am not attacking Christianity. I am attacking an unregulated environment that creates room for abuse, manipulation, noise pollution, financial exploitation, and false promises, especially to vulnerable people. Cameroonians have suffered enough. And there's so many people that are unemployed and they only believe in miracles. They believe that somebody bewitched them. Yes, you don't board a plane that is not regulated by aviation authorities because your life is at risk. You cannot pay your flight to board a plane owned by a company that is not regulated by the aviation authorities. You cannot do that. The same logic applies. When spiritual spaces are unregulated, people's minds, money, and safety can be at risk. And here's the key balance. Faith matters, work matters, and even scripture says it plainly. Faith without works is dead. So if a society becomes more religious while becoming less productive, less accountable, less scientifically grounded, and even less spiritual, because there's a big difference, then something is off. Yes, you need spiritual, purity. And also, people should understand this. In many diaspora settings, churches operate as registered organizations with compliance rules, traceability, reporting, sometimes donation receipts. Yes, it offsets people's taxes because they give to charity. That structure does not make people perfect. Far from it. It reduces chaos. That's all I'm saying. So I hope that is a perspective that you can understand with the context from the last episode. The second is the diaspora that was said to be overly critical. And I think that, we need to also put it in its context. Let me say this with the facts. The diaspora remittances sustain households in Cameroon. School fees, hospital bills, rents, small projects, transport, emergencies, everyday survival. Things that if the government was functioning and doing its job, most of those things would not be necessary. Cameroonians abroad, Nigerians, Ghanaians, and so on, they're not the only people that form the diaspora core in different parts of the world. And that is why most times people in the diaspora want to see their governments back there function properly, because it will help to elevate the status quo. There are many people in the diaspora who work tirelessly day and night, 2-3 jobs, just to keep up with the demands that come from back home. They don't even complain for the most part. It's not because they don't value that the people back home can fend for themselves and defend their own situation, but they understand that the government hasn't done enough to help, and they have to come in to fill those gaps. Imagine if the system was functional and working. And beyond money, diaspora also brings exposure to functional systems, skills, standards, networks, and confidence to say, it can work because I've seen it work. There are people who've driven their first car because somebody in the diaspora got it for them. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be children, it could be anybody, but in the lineage and even beyond. It's not to say that because of that they then become your savior. No, it doesn't make somebody in the diaspora your God. No, we're saying that we have to be factual. The statistics are there. Billions of CFA has left the diaspora and gone into the Cameroonian economy, and it goes like that every single year. And it helps to boost the economy. Sometimes people don't understand it because there are people that don't earn income in Cameroon, but they are sustained. It's because the diaspora is functional. So the diaspora is not just overly critical. Yes. So when the diaspora criticizes, it's not hatred. It is often a form of accountability pressure. And the real issue is not the government must do everything. The real issue is the government must create the environment where people can thrive. The state holds the treasury keys, the data, the institutions, the rules, the permits, the security, the courts, the subsoil. They sign contracts with foreign national companies and give away resources that Cameroonians could tap into without any guarantees for transfer of technology. That is what the diaspora is saying. Innovation. There are things that 10 years ago were done and poorly done, and they are still doing them today. The diaspora is saying, change the system, advance. And you should know that majority of those who are in government today in Cameroon studied in the diaspora. They came back to serve under a system that was functional under Amadou Ahidjo. Yes, the economy was healthy. He may have had his ways, but the economy was healthy, and they came back to serve, and they've been there, and then they've blocked the doors. They don't want other people from the diaspora to, they don't create an environment so they can come back. We can quote examples. I don't like to do comparative analysis with other African countries. Take the case of Senegal. Just do your own research. Sometimes when we say these things, people think we're trying to paint a black picture. Take the case of Senegal. Let's compare within Africa and see the transformation of their different economies. So people are not criticizing out of hatred. They're just when you hear people from the diaspora talk about systems, they're talking about systems that work. And they're telling you that Cameroon has all it takes to outperform many African countries if only the government was creating that enabling environment. And that is exactly the point. Because you need to remember something. If the environment is broken for decades, people have a right to say this manager is failing. Take football, for example. When you don't perform, you get sacked. That's the rule. So the people went to the polls on October 12th and sacked the Biya regime. That's what happened. Yes, only that because they don't have the culture to resign, to let go when they underperform. Instead, they try to argue their way, use all kinds of arguments, flood television stations to over-explain why it was the best candidate naturel, candidate supreme, and all those things, because they think that everything can be won with the loudness of your arguments. No, facts are there and facts don't lie. The stats are there and stats don't lie. That's the point. So I hope that we can all have some common ground based on what I've just presented. And finally, a significant moment, we talk about the US Ambassador Christopher Lamora's surprise visit to Barrister Alice Nkom earlier this week, so 2 days ago. And whatever your politics, that is symbolically heavy, because Maitre Alice Nkom is not just a lawyer. She represents a certain tradition of civil society visibility, legal advocacy, and public dissent as a spokesperson of President-elect Issa Chiroma Bakari. So when a departing ambassador pays that kind of visit, it signals a couple of things: recognition, attention, and a reminder that Cameroon's internal civic space is being watched internationally, especially in a tense political season. We won't exaggerate it, we won't romanticize it, but we can also say we won't pretend it's meaningless. My final takeaway for today is this. A New Year wishes does not happen as a ceremony at the Unity Palace for nothing. Remember, in Cameroon, ceremonies are not neutral. Protocol is politics, and handshakes are sometimes messages. If you want, in the next episode, we will do something very practical. I will go through the exit list profiles of ministers that are exiting and save retention profiles and what a survivor cabinet looks like, because we have a draft. I'll be bringing you that draft in the next episode, ministry by ministry. Until then, check the other videos and continue the conversation. May God bless Cameroon. Please watch the previous episode for deeper context and tell us in the comments which ministry will reveal the real direction of this regime: defense, finance, justice, territorial administration, because the PM, they say, is just a figurehead. And you know that too well. Please check all the other videos on this particular platform to get caught up. If you're just new here, welcome on board, and continue to subscribe, to share, to comment, to like. Thank you for your contributions. Take care, and until the next one, stay blessed.